Hello, hello. I am back from my little vacation to go see my parents, and just yesterday they revealed new leaders for OP14, and I thought that would be a good video to do once I'm back. So let's go over them. There are two leaders that got revealed that are officially revealed, which is this Boa and this Mihawk, and then we've had some unofficial leaks that are very likely to be true, but we technically don't know yet. So once we talk about those 5 leaders, because it's 7 in total, just make sure that we take everything I say with a bit of grain of salt until these leaders are officially revealed. But first, let's have a look at what these leaders look like one by one, and more importantly, what Decklists potentially could look like. Despite us not having any OP14 reveals and only some EBO3 and the cards we already know up to OP13. Let's begin with the Boa. She's a 4 life leader, 5k power, types are Kuja Pirates and 7 Warlords. On opponent's turn, when your character is played, draw 1 card, which is very interesting because this basically means you draw every time you use a trigger. I don't think, like, apart from shut up and come with us, I don't think there are like counter events that let you play a card on your opponent's turn, but obviously they could always print something like that. But I think up until now, the most efficient way to get this ability is with trigger cards. And the second ability is if you have a Don attached once per turn, when one of your characters with the type Amazon Lily or Kuja Pirates with an original power of 5,000 or greater is KO'd, your opponent adds 1 card from the top of their life to their hand. So it's kind of, well, it's exactly like OP11 Koala. Even both effects are pretty much OP11 Koala, just in a different font. You get to draw in a way, and you get to life burn in a way. So let's have a look at what a deck list with the cards we currently have could potentially look like. Alright, here are some cards that I think would be interesting to talk about. I've just used the blue Boa leader that we already have to represent the new Boa leader. And in order to make this deck list, I am just going to assume that the best way to play this leader is going to be in archetype. So what's the best way to start a deck list? I think it's with searchers. So the searcher for Amazon Lily and Kuja Pirates that we currently already have is Grandma Neon, and I think there's no, unless they print another one, there's no reason why we shouldn't be running this. The second thing I always like to look at when figuring out what my core of my deck list would look like is 2Ks. The 2Ks in archetype that we have are Boa Sanasonia and Aphelandra, I guess is how you'd pronounce it. And neither of these two have a great effect. Maybe Sandersonia could be used to like bounce chump blockers to go for game and so on, but we also will have Perfume to not have to bounce things, but could just rush through. But yeah, I think this is the beginning. And now if we think back to what our leader ability does, it's the first part. If you trigger something out, you get to draw a card. So in archetype, I think the best card that we have, might be the only card that we have, is this 3-cost blocker Boa Hancock. And I think this card is going to be really good to the point where I assume that we might even want to play more Brûlés, because playing a blocker while drawing a card sounds pretty damn good to me. Other trigger bodies that I think could get a lot of value in this deck are things like, obviously, the Kiku Nojo. It just, not only do you play the card for free, but you also now get to draw a card. This Sanji, you don't need to anymore really pay the cost of trashing a card because your leader ability negates that. With this Frankie, if it gets to trigger, it's kind of nuts because you get to play the card and get to draw 2. So it like becomes like a baby 5 trigger while the body also triggers out. This S-Snake, even though it's I mean, it is Boa, but it is not in archetype because it's a Seraphim and not Boa herself. I think could be very good because it's the only yellow card in the game right now that has power reduction. And power reduction is something that, as somebody who played yellow, I was craving for in most of my yellow decks to have, just so 8-cost Kid and other big bodies would become a lot easier to deal with. So being able to trigger this card out for free as well, I think could be very impactful. In a similar vein than this Sanji blocker, if you just want to have the Sanji blocker as a 2k, I think the Satori is going to be really good. It's a body that you can now cheat out for free. And in terms of value, the Shirahoshi is going to be insane because you get to draw 4 and trash 2. But whether all of these are, like, whether this is actually, like, good enough to be included in a deck, because once it's in your hand, it's just, well, it's never a brick, but it's useless, apart from it being a 1k counter. I'm not exactly sure yet. This new boa that we have in PRBO2 also has a trigger. It doesn't play anything out, but the trigger is still quite nice. And currently my assumption is that this deck will heavily rely on triggers like yellow decks. Not always, but often tend to do. Now let's talk about the life burn part of the ability. So every time a character that is a Kuja Pirates or an Amazon Lily type gets KO'd by your opponent, whether that's in battle or by effect, you get to burn. Well, it's not exactly burn, you don't get to trash it, but you get to put one of their life cards into their hands. So essentially they have to take a life. And I think there's a solid amount of cards that enable this playstyle. First of all, there are the 2 blockers that we have. We have the OPO1 Boa, where on block, now you could draw a card and burn their life, which actually makes this 1 Don investment underneath it quite valuable. We have the starter deck Boa that it is a brick, and in the original blue Boa you weren't really playing it because it is a brick and the effect isn't insane, but because this is a blocker, with it out we get to choose when we want to burn our opponent's life, which I think is quite strong. This Boa Marigold sadly does not get to burn a life because it isn't 5k power or higher, but it still gets to play out the other 2 blockers, and basically all of our Boa cards gets to play out. So I think it's a very good inclusion in the deck. We obviously have the 6-cost Boa, but I am wondering whether this 6-cost Boa is gonna be included at all, because I think most of the time it's weird, like not necessarily most of the time this Boa is better, because with this Boa we have to touch a card to freeze something, but we also have the option to freeze leaders. And I think in the current meta and what we currently see in Japan, I think freezing leaders with how popular Zoro is very impactful, and I don't know if we will have the space to put in both of these Boas. And I think if I have to make a choice between both of these, I'd rather have the versatility of the yellow Boa, even though we have to trash a card for it. And I think this Boa was designed, like when this Boa was first revealed, I was confused why they even printed this card, but I guess with the new Boa out now, with that leader out now, they surely must have printed this with the leader in mind. Now let's go through some of the generic like 3 and 4 drops of the Boas that exist. This Boa is very good in the sense that if the on KO goes off, it's insane because you get to draw 2 cards and you get to burn your opponent's life. But what that more effectively means is that your opponent is never going to actually KO this card. By playing this Boa, you will just, from the beginning of your 3 Dawn turn, have basically another leader constantly, because no one will KO this card, so you'll swing 2 5ks every single turn. Obviously, there are like some 6k leaders in the meta right now, and there will be once OP 12 comes out here in the West. So it's to see how impactful having a constant 5k is on the board, but in theory it sounds quite strong. Now this promo Boa I think could be very, very good as well, because if you do end up playing an archetype with the Kuja Pirates, you get a constant buff for all of your characters. And like I just said, with the amount of 6k leaders, 7k leaders with Roger and Ace and so on, and blue-purple that are in the meta, I think buffing everything by 1k is really, really strong. So if you don't have a playset of this card yet, I would recommend getting some. Because if this leader does become good, getting a hold of this card is going to be quite difficult, I think. I already touched on the perfume. I think just having it as a 2-of in a deck that can use it is always good. Lastly, I want to talk about this boa that got revealed in EBO 3. I am not 100% sure whether we will play it or not. It's a good card, and you get to play it off Boa Marigold, but it doesn't synergize super well with what I think this deck wants to do. Like, Hand Rip is nice and all, and you get to give a Rested Dawn to your leader, which you need to activate its condition, but I don't know if it's strong enough, because I don't know how often we actually get to bottom deck our own cards. I mean, in this boa, obviously bottom decking your own card is nice because you get to draw a card, but in the blue yellow boa, I'm just not sure. Like, currently our only low drop that I think we would be playing in this deck is gonna be the Searcher. And how often do you actually get to play this Searcher and then bottom deck it for this Rested Dawn to matter that much? Next up, let's talk about Mihawk. He's a green leader. 5 life, 5k power, but we'll have to talk about that one in a second. 7 Warlords is his only archetype, and his effect is if your opponent's leader has a type slash, this leader has plus 1k power. We'll take a look in a second at what leaders are relevant in the meta that are slash type, but otherwise I think this is kind of just a bonus for lore accuracy's sake. But a relevant bonus, obviously, because the difference between a 5k and a 6k leader is massive. The question is just whether this difference is all that defines this leader, so that if there are no slash leaders in the game or in the current meta, whether this leader becomes useless, or whether he can be strong even without playing against another slash archetype. Then his actual ability, his activate main, is once per turn, you may rest one of your cards if there is a character with a cost of 5 or greater on the board, set up to 3 of your Dawn as active. Then you may not play character cards this turn. So this says also if there's a character with a cost of 5 or greater, which doesn't mean it has to be your character, which I think is an important distinction to make. But let's go and have a look at the cards that could be included in this deck. Okay, first let's have a look at what slash leaders are in the game and which of those are defining meta leaders. So at the beginning, I don't think there's anything to talk about. This Vivi, I think, could potentially be interesting. We don't know yet how strong she's going to be. But if she is, that's one leader at the very least. Zora is always not bad. Argilos, I don't think will ever be important again unless they change their design philosophy. Because every time they make a good green or red character that this lore could use, they decide to make it a 6 cost. What else is here? There's Kolgar, which I think is relevant. There's Shanks, which is relevant. Buggy maybe, Smoker, Lore, Rayleigh definitely, obviously Green Zora, and obviously Gold Roger, and even the Sanji Zora I think could be talked about. So I think there's a decent amount of leaders where Mihawk does become a 6k, which I think is quite important. Like just things like Rayleigh having to already play into a 6k leader instead of just being able to chip with 5s, I think matters so much. And it's also not just on opponent's turn, it's on both turns, so Mihawk will start hitting harder as well. Again, I think the best way for me to currently build these leaders without having any reveals of OP14 is to simply assume they are somewhat playing in an archetype. And in Mihawk's case, the only archetype he has is 7 Warlords of the Sea, and there's not much in green that supports that archetype, so the best way to do it, I think, is to just go by the slash attribute. And this leader does borrow a lot, I think, from what Green Zora obviously would play. However, the important distinction is that this leader can neither play Cavendish, because he's not a supernova, and it can also not play Tashigi, which I think is what most good green decks are currently carried by. If you play green deck and you can't play either of those 2 cards, chances are that the leader is bad. But that doesn't mean Mihawk will be bad. So, because we're playing in the slash archetype, Perona is obviously going to be our searcher. Like I said before, the way I like building decks is going searchers first, then 2Ks next. What 2Ks are valuable in the slash archetype? It's this Mihawk. We'll have to see if we can find good 4-drops to play with this Mihawk to make him relevant and important, because I think the most common 4-drop to currently play with this Mihawk is the new Zoro, but obviously we cannot play it because we are neither a film character nor a Straw Hat type. But we still have other 2Ks, like this green Zoro that came out in PRBO2. I think it's just a generic, very strong 2K that can be played. Obviously this Tashigi is important, and if you need other 2Ks that are in the slash attribute, I think things like Kawamatsu or I think there are many other 2Ks you can play in green that are slash. You could even play this Hatcha. Never mind, our leader's not these blue. Scratch that. But yeah, Kozoboro, if you like the effect. This vanilla 2K, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, maybe potentially even this Rika. Now, after the 2Ks, I had a look at what are good 5-drops to play in order to activate our leader ability and be able to restand our Don. And because the most obvious in Cavendish and Tashigi are out of the picture, I think the next ones are always going to be this Smoker as a generic and generic green character and also a slash attribute. And I think generic green, good card number 1, Carrot, can always be included as well. But other ones that might be a bit more unique are this Diamante, which, because we are not able to play any characters with our restood Don, sometimes maybe it's beneficial to simply leave the Don active, either because we want to play events, or in this Diamante's case, we can use it to restand our Diamante while also swing with it, and he's a slash attribute as well. Some blockers to talk about are this Koshiro. If we end up playing in majority in our slash attribute, this is going to be our main blocker. Obviously this 2K is one. This Law might be good. I think it depends. Whether this Law is good could also highly depend on whether this Law is good. Because they synergize with each other. And but in Green Zoro in OP13 we can see that this Law is quite strong. Also in Sanji Zoro. So I think it's not unlikely for this synergy to exist. Playing this, or into Tashigi and so on, whatever you need in that moment. This Bonnie is interesting. I'm not sure whether we'll be able to meet the condition that often. But I think 5-6 blockers with draw 2, trash 1 are always going to be important to look at. And our top end, Hody Jones, obviously. This Mihawk, obviously. If this Mihawk isn't played in this green Mihawk deck, then I don't know. Maybe it's... I can't imagine it not being played. This Zoro is always important to look at, especially because it's searchable of Perona now. The Shanks is very strong as a generic green and also searchable card, and because this Beppo and Law is also searchable, and if you're playing against a slash leader and you're already a 6K, and with this Beppo and Law you become an 8K, I think it could be it might be the best top end you can play in this leader, but maybe I overestimate the power of this card. Now some events to talk about. Obviously the 0 cost is always good because you can search it off Perona. Alongside this Mihawk, Paradise Waterfall is brilliant. If you don't end up playing Hody, Ashura is going to be perfect, or even together they're great. Because you can, and your leader ability states that you can't play characters after restanding Dawn. It doesn't say you can't play events or stages. So 2 things I thought about is that you can play Luna after restanding the Dawn, so you always have a free Luna as well. And something very funny I thought about is that you could play Boat and then just swing for lethal at some point in the game. Or even better, you could play Boat, restand your Dawn, get 3 Don back, play Luna and stun the entire board. Now, I don't actually think this is gonna be good. I just thought it'd be funny, so I included it. Additionally though, if Mihawk ends up getting a restand event like Zoro, what's the card called? Luffy is the man. There we have it. Yeah, if Mihawk ends up getting a restand event like this Zoro does, or like Kuro does, and so on, then we can restand the Dawn of Leader ability and use the event to restand our leader, which is not going to be impacted by the restriction. Next up are the unofficial leaks that the leaders are. So these might not be true. We know that the old arts for these over here are not true. They are custom old arts. But in the picture where these got leaked, the 2 official ones, the Boa and the Mihawk, they had the same exact text than the official leaked versions. So there's a strong possibility that these leaders are accurate and will be printed this way. So let's talk about them. First, I'll start talking about this crocodile. Also, excuse the quality. This is just the best way these leaders have been scanned at the moment, but I will read all the effects out loud if it's too straining to look at these cards and look at the screen. So, Crocodile, he's a 5-life black leader. He has the 7 Warlords of the Sea and Baroque Works archetypes. And his effect reads, all of your opponent's characters cannot be removed from the field by your effects. That line already, especially for a black leader, is extremely interesting, considering that black is the removal color. And it means that any type of removal you play is irrelevant. Now, I think the reason they did that is the second part of Crocodile's ability. It's activate main once per turn. You make KO one of your characters with the type including Baroque Works, and then give up to one of your opponent's characters -10 cost during this turn. Then you may trash 2 cards from the top of your deck. Super interesting ability, and I think we currently do not have any black Baroque Works in the game. We have 2 leaks, which I'll go over in a second, that are from EBO3, but that are black Baroque Works. But apart from that, I think this leader is going to depend entirely on its support that's going to come out in this set. Now you might be confused, why the hell can Crocodile reduce everything basically to 0, well -10, which is most of the time to 0, while not being able to KO anything? And I think the 2 cards that got leaked do somewhat show the reason for that. Well, the first one might not. This is Miss Valentine. On play, you may trash 3 cards on the top of your deck, and on KO, you get to draw 1 card. I don't know how relevant this is going to be. I think the only way this is going to be relevant is if this becomes a heavy mill deck, which it seems like it does, because we get to trash 2 cards from our deck of lead ability as well. So here we get to trash 3 more cards. I assume we'll get cards that allow us to either put cards back into the deck, or maybe we have a mill out win condition in a way like Nami, but I don't think Bandai want to go in that direction anymore. And the second card that has been revealed is Miss Doublefinger, and she reads that on play, if there's a character with a cost of 0 or 8 or more in play, draw 1 card. So, and then on KO you get to trash 2 cards from your deck again, so milling is clearly a theme. But it seems like Crocodile's, all of his character's abilities are gonna rely on your opponent having a character with the cost of 0 on the board. So whatever these abilities are going to be, I mean, they're not going to be KO, clearly. Actually, is it KO? No, they're not going to be removal at all. So whatever these abilities are going to be is always most likely going to rely on Crocodile trashing a Baroque Works card to give something -10, so that all of his on plays or whatever become active. But that's all we know for now, so I'll move on to the next leaders. Next up, we have Purple Don Quixote Doflamingo. He's purple, 5,000 power, 5 life leader. Seven Warlords of the Sea Time, and Don Quixote Family, or Don Quixote Pirates, I think is the exact archetype. And his ability is, on your opponent's attack, once per turn, -1 Don, select your leader or one of your Don Quixote Pirates type characters and change the target of this attack to the selected card. And this ability, I think, could be quite toxic. If you have ever played this purple-yellow crocodile, you know how absurdly broken of a card O Come My Way is. And now we have O Come My Way on a leader. Not only that, Doffy's leader, the new Doffy's leader ability is basically the Rosinante leader ability with blocker in better, because you can direct the attack to your leader as well if you want to. But apart from that, to show you how toxic this card could be, so Doffy's leader ability could be, basically every time you swing, you have to consider how Doffy is able to redirect his cards. So let's say he has a sugar on board, or he played a baby 5 earlier in the game to ramp, and so on. So he just has a little body lying there. Every time you swing high, basically every time you swing higher than a 1 card threshold, it's in Doffy's best interest to redirect the attack towards one of these tiny characters or towards his leader. But the problem is if you swing lower than that, and Doffy has, like, if you start swinging 7Ks in order to minimize the damage Doffy can do with his O Come My Way leader ability, he can always choose to simply redirect his attack to one of his higher statted characters, and then your attack just fizzles. So I think playing against this new Doffy leader with O Come My Way built in is gonna be very challenging, and it's gonna test fundamentals a lot, which is gonna be interesting. But most importantly, I think it's gonna be toxic, which, depending on who you are, is a good thing or it's a bad thing. Me personally, I love O Come My Way as a card, and I can't wait to play a leader that can do it consistently. Now, if Doffy somehow, like the old Croc does, if he somehow gets away to like get like an on KO that heals, like with Kikunojo or with Kumar, then this leader is going to become even more nuts. But currently that doesn't exist, and I hope they don't make a purple card that can heal on KO. Like Big Mom being able to heal is stupid enough already. But let's have a look at the Don Quixote Pirate cards that already exist in the archetype. And we have quite a few thanks to this Doffy and the Sugar Leader that already exists. Once again, I'm gonna go over this the same way as always. Searches first, this Sugar exists. And this event exists, which might also become important. This, we don't know but if this will become an event heavy deck like other Doffys tend to be. But because it can play this Rosie, chances are quite high that it will be. Then we have the 2Ks, this Giola exists, this Baby 5 is, and we have some generic vanilla 2Ks as well, which can be played off this Doffy, which is quite nice. Then the main engine, I think, is going to be this 8 Doffy plus Rosinante, like we've seen in many other decks before. Apart from that, this inner pink is going to be very strong because it's just going to be able to cycle back a bunch of events, like let's include those as well, like Blast Breath and Judgment. It's probably the best purple events that exists in a leader that can't play Giant. In archetype we have God Thread, which is a very strong KO option. We don't know if this leader will become a ramp deck. I mean, most purple decks tend to have some type of ramp built in most of the time through this Bond Clay, because the card is just so generically good, or the Katakuri, but at that point, unless you have a lot of minus effects, the ramp doesn't matter that much anymore. And yeah, I think Big Mom, as always, is just going to be a very good top end. So I think even without any type of support, I think like a deck list that is like this could already start becoming scary with the redirection that is built into the leader. And I'm sure Bandai will print some more support for for this leader this set too, because I believe it is the only purple colored deck that is going to be printed this set. Next up, let's talk about the new Moria. Again, the picture's blurry, sorry about that, but I'll read it. So first of all, he's a 5k leader with 4 life, he's black and yellow, and he has a leader ability that reads activate main once per turn. You may KO one of your Thriller Bark Pirates type characters, and then your leader and all of your characters gain plus 1k during this turn. So important, you have to trash the Thriller Bark Pirates character, but the buff relates to all of your characters, including your leader. So kind of you need to trash a card to get red Zora effect, is how I like to think about this. And then when attacking, you may trash 3 cards from your hand and add up to 1 card from the top of your life to the top of your life cards. So you get to heal for trashing 3 cards. I think this leader is horrible. That's my current guess. I feel like this leader is a worse or is just as bad as Black Yellow Big Mom that currently exists in the game, but I'll gladly be proven wrong. It does have some things going for it, and it could be a fun and cool gimmicky type leader, maybe. But my guess at the moment is that it is gonna be horrible. But I've been wrong on that assumption before. I thought Rayleigh was gonna be horrible, and that leader is really, really good. So maybe there's hope for Moria as well. The first card I want to talk about is this Perona that got revealed in EBO3, and I thought, oh, it might be a nice card for the current Black Moria that exists, but I think it's a pretty nice card for this Moria as well, because on play, give up to one of your leader or your characters up to run Rested Dawn, which doesn't matter in this case, but then if you have 10 or more cards in your trash, play up to 1, cost 2 or lower character card with Thriller Bark Pirates type from your trash rested. And I think that is gonna be the engine of this deck. Playing out little things over and over again in order to buff your entire board and your leader. So I think this is gonna be an aggro deck that also has the ability to like stay alive for a turn or 2 longer in an annoying way, because you can trash 3 cards in order to heal, even though trashing 3 is so expensive. I mean, if you think about it, let's say you have like a 2k, a 1k and a brick in hand. Trashing 3 cards, those 3 cards to heal 1, most of the time the 2k and the 1k will just defend the 1 life you have, like the 1 attack anyway, so it is kind of equivalent to a life, but you don't need to trash the cards. Sure, you get like a card back because you get to take a life, but is it really worth it? I don't even know if it's... I mean, it's probably worth it if you have 3 bricks in hand, then it's nice, but I don't know how impactful it's going to be. But I think the main thing to talk about is that this leader ability to activate main one is not that you trash a character, you KO one of your characters. And a lot of your Thriller Bark type pirates that currently exist already, and we might see more support, even though I think the support for this leader, I think the yellow part is going to be the Thriller Bark pirate support, because a lot of the black support has to go into this crocodile leader. But let's have a look at the deck lists and cards I think that could be included in this leader that currently already exist apart from this Perona. So because Thriller Bark Pirates doesn't have a searcher currently, apart from, I guess, this green Perona that exists, which we obviously cannot play. My usual way of making a deck doesn't quite work. So I just started with my 2Ks, which in this case in archetype are the Sindri and the Perona, and if you really want, then you can even play this Hilden, but I assume because it's yellow you'd rather play other 2Ks, because yellow has a lot of good 2Ks like Zeus and Beige and Baby 5. Yeah, Baby 5 works because we are multicolored, so I think you'd rather play these, because in archetype 2Ks might not matter that much because you don't have a way of searching them at the moment. Now the philosophy I went with for this leader is that we need to find little guys to to trash or more likely to KO every turn in order to buff our entire board. And I think the best ones in archetype will be this Jinbe, because you get to play it and you get to draw 2, trash 1, and then on KO you get to draw 2, trash 1. So you can be incredibly greedy, I think, with your bricks in this deck. Because alongside the stage, which I also think is going to be very valuable in this deck, you will get to cycle every single turn. And this stage is what I think, hopefully, the stage finally finds a useful home. Because for it, you basically get to have, like I said earlier, Zoro's leader ability, Red Zoro's leader ability every turn, where you get to spend it on to play something, in this case, Jinbe, or potentially just Jigoro, and then you get to KO it and use the KO effect as well to cycle again or to buff something and buff your entire board as well. So I think this leader could end up being very fast and hit quite heavily, but I still don't have much hope for it. I have to be honest. Apart from that, while building this deck, I thought about, okay, which in archetype Filler Bark Pirates do we have? We obviously have this Hogbag, we have the Perona, Absalom if reduction becomes a thing. I'm not sure yet if this leader will play reduction, but if it does, Absalom obviously. This new Moria, again, does the same thing as the stage. You get to play it, you get to play something, a little guy, get to pop it, buff your entire board. This rumor I think is not bad. It's just it's a nice double attack which feeds into your aggressive playstyle. This Ors might actually now find a way to be played, because you get to KO something from your leader, but you also get to KO something from this Ors. So depending on how you want to funnel everything, like maybe if milling becomes a thing, this Tawalan is going to become impactful. So I think depending on what support this leader gets, maybe it will be good. But right now it's again, also if reduction becomes a thing, obviously Tempest Kick will be very nice in the deck, especially with more milling. This new Moria that we just got in PRBO2 could be nice, because you can play this into Perona, the new Perona that I showed you on Discord, and then you get to attach 2 Rested Dawn to a leader or any other character, and then you get to play another 2 cards, and then you get to trash a little guy to buff everything, and then you have like 7k, 7k, 7k swings on board, which I think is strong, don't get me wrong. And then if you add that to the generic big drops that exist in both colors, like this Kid, which feeds into your aggressive play style, or if you end up wanting to play more of a survivalist playstyle, this Yamato and the Ace are going to be very good. And with the amount of little guys you get to play and cycle you get to have, I think big drops and this Doffy in general are going to be very impactful as well. So that's the vision I have for this leader at the moment. Be aggro, play a bunch of minis to fuel that playstyle, play stage, and just go face. And then if they try to out-sustain you or aggro you back, you just get the leader ability and heal yourself for a turn or 2. Next up, let's talk about this lore. He's a mono-red leader, 5k power, 5 life. And his ability reads, activate main once per turn, select 2 of your supernovas or hard pirates type characters and swap the base power of the selected characters with each other during this turn. Super cool leader ability with a lot of potential. We get to shambles with a lore leader once again, and I'm excited for it. Currently not a lot of support exists for this leader, and the support that does exist will rotate out. As you can see, all of it is, well, most of it is set 1, and basically the only non-set 1 cards are this SR lore we just got in PRB, this Sachi Penguin, and this Kid Killer, which these 2 cards are definitely good, but the rest of the support currently is still lacking. But that doesn't mean that I think the leader will be bad. This lore is the only red leader that is printed in this set, so all its support that's going to be printed in the set is going to funnel into this leader. And I think the only thing this leader needs, really, is a low-cost searcher and a good top end. Because in the end, what you'll want to do with this leader is, let's say you have a 9k on the board and a normal 2k searcher. You swing with your 9k, you swap your powers around, swing 9k again with your 1 cost searcher. And that's already powerful enough. Now if we add other types of effects, like when attacking, to that concept, I think this leader can be very, very strong. And with the lore we have in PRBO2 that reduces power, I could definitely see this become a power-related interactive leader like Red Purple Lore used to be, just hopefully less oppressive, so that it doesn't get banned. But I see a lot of potential in this leader. Last but not least, let's talk about Jinbe. He's a mono blue leader, he has 5k power and 5 life, and his leader ability reads, activate main, you may trash 1 card from your hand, give up to 2 rested Don cards to one of your fishermen or merfolk type leader or character cards. And I think this leader is also terrible, and I'll tell you why. First off, all the support for this leader will have to be printed in this set, because currently the only really playable card is Nemul. I think that's it. I don't think you'd play this Jinbe, because otherwise you'll have to divide between the Warlords archetype and the Fishman Merfolk archetype, but we'll see. This hack doesn't really do anything and everything else is pretty much useless as well. And this beautiful boy is banned, sadly. But that's not the reason why I think it's terrible. The reason I think this leader is terrible is because it is a bad version of this Odin. Because this way you can trash an in-archetype card and you get to set 2 Don as active. So at least you get to reuse them freely again and not just attach to Don. And if you want to go to attaching Don, it's just a worse Bonnie leader. So I don't know, I really don't know what they could possibly reveal for this leader that would make me go, yes, this leader is good. Because already none of the 2 leaders that I've shown you are really good. This Bonnie is okay, but it has not done much in Asia, and I doubt it's going to do much in the West as well. But it's just not a good leader ability. So if there's one leader I hope that turns out to be fake, it's this Jinbe. But we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I like my boy Jinbe. Maybe it's going to be a Rayleigh situation. I don't think so. But let's see. And yeah, that was it. I hope you enjoyed this different type of video. I will go back to gameplay. Probably in 2 days I'll upload the next gameplay video. It's most likely going to be PRBO2 Kobe or PRBO2 Blue Yellow Ace. I think these are the 2 decks I want to be tinkering around with. But yeah, please let me know if you enjoy these type of theorizing videos, because if you do, I'll make an effort to try and stay up to date with all the reveals and keep theorizing with what could be done with these leaders. Up until then, have a good day.